Hello, everyone. It's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. This might be old news to you guys, but I just found out about this today, and this was actually pretty shocking to me. BYD is making this car they call the Dolphin Mini in some markets, and in other markets they call it the Seagull, and it's starting at $9,700 US. Okay, we'll get back to this car, but I wanted to kind of talk about BYD. If you guys remember, EV stocks have not been doing well over the past several years. Here's a comparison graph looking at Tesla in black, BYD in blue, and then Lucid in purple, and then Rivian in gold, and Canoe in green. So if you look at this compared over the last 3 years, there's only one of these stocks that's up in value, and that's BYD. So BYD is up 9.5% over the past 3 years. Tesla is down 22% in 3 years. Rivian and Lucid are down 90 and 91%. And then Canoe is down 99.62%. And I think I told you guys I bought into a little bit of Canoe. So far, I'm down 50%. So my track record of picking great stocks continues. But yeah, BYD is actually doing well. And if you guys might have heard the news that BYD is now the number one EV manufacturer globally. They surpassed Tesla as of Q4 of 2023. So if you look at this graph, you see that Tesla had quite a lead globally in passenger vehicles in thousands. So Tesla in Q2 of 2021 delivered 200,000 vehicles, and BYD had delivered 50,000 vehicles. But then over time, you see BYD catching up and now has overtaken Tesla. And so BYD is the number one EV manufacturer globally. And it's not hard to see why, because now they are delivering vehicles that are much more affordable than Tesla. And if you guys remember, BYD is also a one of the largest EV battery manufacturers in the world. Okay, so here's the list of the top EV battery manufacturers in the world. Number one is CATL. I remember I used to keep calling this company KATL for some reason, but it's CATL. So CATL is the number one EV battery manufacturing company in the world. Number two is LG Chem. So LG Chem, that's a South Korean company. They produce vehicles for lots of different OEMs like GM. I think they make for Volvo, BMW, maybe several other companies, Hyundai, that kind of stuff. And then number three is BYD. So BYD famously was also like a very early investor in BYD was Warren Buffett. I don't know if Warren Buffett has cleared off his position with BYD, but Warren Buffett was a very early investor in BYD, and he did quite well with that investment. The other thing that BYD is famous for is making what they call this blade battery, and the blade battery is thought to be one of the safest batteries. It's a lithium iron phosphate chemistry battery, which is inherently safer than most lithium ion batteries, but their blade battery is designed in a way. So here's a nail penetration test. This is a test that almost all batteries fail. And so if you penetrate them, it basically shorts them out and they have runaway short. And so this is a regular lithium ion battery. And with the nail penetration, you see that it explodes fairly dramatically. With the blade battery, then they are, I think, one of the maybe the first, maybe the only rechargeable battery that passes the nail penetration test. So nothing happens. Voltage doesn't really even drop that much, and temperatures don't go beyond 60 degrees. They also did another test where they kind of drove over it with a large truck, and you can see all the compression of their battery pack. So yeah, if you look here, they're loading it up with more, and you'll see some video. You can see the flexing of the battery pack, and this usually would be fatal for a lot of car battery packs. And then at the end, they take the battery pack that was run over, they reinstall it into their vehicle. Yep, you see that, and then they drive away in it. So the battery is no worse for the wear with that. So anyway, pretty impressive battery. And this BYD Seagull that starts at less than $10,000 US when sold in China, when purchased in China, has a BYD Blade battery. Um, they like to call it Lamborghini Mini because it was designed by Wolfgang Egger, and he was Lamborghini's old designer. I mean, it's hard to say that it looks like a Lamborghini, but maybe you could, if you squint your eyes a lot, you could think maybe this looks sort of like an Aventador or something. But it's a vehicle that's pretty well made actually, and sells for under $10,000. That is absolutely ridiculous. If you look on the inside, I mean, the design really doesn't speak to me, but it's not like it doesn't look super cheap. And there isn't they even have a wireless phone charger. They have climate control, AC, cruise control. They have airbags. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And if you look at their efficiency, it's not bad. If you look at their efficiency numbers, it is, I think they have a 30 kilowatt hour pack, and it goes about 190 miles on a 30 kilowatt hour pack. Okay, I saw that someplace. Maybe it was over here. Oh yeah, yeah, here you go. So there's two battery packs. There's a 30 kilowatt hour pack and a 39 kilowatt hour pack, and it goes 300 or 400 kilometers on that. That's 300 kilometers, about 190 miles. Now that is on the CLTC cycle, which is the Chinese cycle, which is a little slower. So you would expect range to be a little bit worse on the EPA cycle. But even given that, let's say that it's 160 or something, 160 miles for 300 kilometers. That's still an efficiency of better than 200 watts per mile. And so we're expecting Aptera to come in at 100 watts per mile, and this is like 50% better than a Model 3, which is like 300 watts per mile. This would be at like 180 watts per mile. So really good. And the weight of it is 2,700 pounds, so much lighter than your average EV. Now, it's not a performance car. If you look at this, it's got a maximum power of 75 horsepower, and it does 0 to 60 in 13 seconds. That is extremely anemic for an EV. That's sort of like the acceleration numbers that you would have gotten from a Toyota Tercel in the late 1990s or something, or a Corolla in the 90s. Would be like 0 to 60 in 13 seconds. So it'll get you around, but it's not gonna inspire fun driving. Has a top speed of 130 kilometers per hour, which I think is about 80 miles per hour, roughly 80 miles per hour. So you can take it on the highway, and it has a range of 160 to 190 miles. That's actually pretty usable range. Like I could go to most places in Southern California with it. I could go to LA and back with it, no problem. I could go to the beach and back with it, no problem. I could go to the mountains and back with it, no problem. So it's a very usable range, and it has fast charging. It'll go 10% to 80% in 42 minutes. That's pretty good. So it's a very, very functional, well-built car for $10,000, less than $10,000. And even if the current tariff is like 27.5%, so if you add 30% to it, that's still what, $13,000. That's a screaming deal. Now, that is not what BYD is doing. Has taken this to Brazil, and they're selling this for $20,000 in South America, and they're taking it to Europe, and we don't know exactly what the pricing will be in euros, but it's going to be definitely more than $10,000. But the sad news is that BYD is probably not going to come to the U.S. And here's I'm gonna end this with a very interesting interview with BYD's CEO of North American operations.
We're not planning to come to US.
No plans to come to
No,
the US?
no.
Why not?
It's too complicated. It's an interesting market, but it's very complicated if you're talking about EV. I think the US market is a little bit slowed down on electrification and a lot of confusing, also very complicated. So we think, no, let's hold. We don't have plan to come to US.
The politics are complicated.
Everything is complicated. Politics complicated, charging infrastructure complicated, and then it's confused for consumer, and then they don't know which to choose. So then I think.
What do you mean when you say it's confusing for the consumer?
Here in US is you have too many confusing noise, speech from different politics. Then this can bring a lot of confusion to consumer and also to auto manufacturer. They're not eager to invest.
You don't think they're eager to invest?
No, because I read the news, always see, oh, this company hold their investment on EV, that company hold their investment on the a battery manufacturing. A lot of topic, we don't know what's happening. But in China, the message is strong. If you are not investing for electric car, you are out. You will die. You have no future.
So let me challenge you on that bit, because I think the White House would argue, yes, China has had a lot of success on EVs. We are trying to accelerate this adoption to going electric. You've got the Inflation Reduction Act that does put forward incentives. It does put forward subsidies as well. When you think about where China is right now, what, 35% roughly penetration, right, for EVs versus the US, which is at 7%. Is the Inflation Reduction Act enough to get it to that? Or do you see fundamental differences in the approach between the US and Chinese market in the government push?
It's fundamentally different. In China, the government will push that like a policy, also will help for the policy. So as long as you produce in China, not produce in China, as long as you produce electric car, then consumer will get a benefit. It's like a give guideline. Then you boost a lot of company to compete. But the U.S. policy with the IRA, actually, this is have a lot of restriction with the Chinese supplier here, and then this bring a lot of complexity to the current EV manufacturer. As you may know, for the battery technology, for a lot of technology, China supply chain is a key player. If you trace down all from the cell to the raw materials, China is 70% of the supply chain. But now for IRA, a little bit too complicated for any OEM to achieve that target.
So you're saying it's not an all-in approach?
It's
Okay, so obviously, they're going to be upset about the IRA because the IRA is essentially cutting China out of the EV market in the United States. And that's by design. China does control about 70% of the EV supply chain, and the current administration does not like that situation and realizes that it is a strategic problem, and they're basically wanting to force domestic supply chains or supply chains with countries that we're more friendly with. And so, yeah, obviously BYD and Chinese companies are not happy about the Inflation Reduction Act, and they're railing against it. But luckily for U.S. car companies, BYD does not plan on entering the U.S. market, because I think something like this coming into the U.S. market, coming in at like $15,000, would be a game changer and would probably kill a lot of EV programs of current car companies in the United States. And it's amazing that BYD is able to produce this car and sell it at a profit at $10,000. And I think the major reason is that BYD is so vertically integrated. They produce the chassis, they produce the battery, the BMS, the motors. They produce even the headlights. They produce everything internally, and they're one of the most vertically integrated companies. And that vertical integration makes them be able to produce a vehicle very cheaply. All right. Well, tell me what you guys think about this vehicle. I mean, what do you guys think of cars that are, this kind of reminded me of the Yugo. I remember when the Yugo first came out, I think it was like a, what, $4,000, $5,000 car. That was back in the day. I'm probably dating myself, but a lot of you guys that are older are going to remember the Yugo. But that was a terrible car. And this car is actually a passable car, a good basic commuter vehicle. It doesn't have any frills, but it's well made, performs well. For not in terms of like speed or anything, but performs well in getting you from point A to point B without too much fuss. And it doesn't have a lot of extras that add cost. And I think this is the kind of vehicle that a lot of people are looking for. And I think that if you brought this car over to the U.S. at like $15,000, I think it would do very well. And the U.S. companies are lucky that BYD doesn't have current plans to come to the U.S. market. And I think consumers are losing out by that. All right. Well, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.